Thanks. Okay, fine. Thanks. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm Rashid, and I'm a faculty of History and International Relations and Security at Edukemy. Clear? Today, I'm here to discuss about an important topic of modern Indian history, and the topic is British policy in India. Clear? As you all may be knowing, that British authority established their imperial rule over India from the middle of the 18th century with their conquest over the province of Bengal. Clear? British East India Company, being a private trading company, began to establish control over large parts of India. Thereafter, they began to exploit Indian resources. At the same time, they began to follow certain definite policies of draining resources from India. And at the same time, they even adopted socio-cultural policies, basically to convert large number of people into Christian religion. Yeah? So with this, we'll discuss about important policies of British authority in India. Politically speaking, just understand, British authority established the political control first over the prosperous province of Bengal, which even included the provinces of Bihar and Odisha. The conquest over Bengal was completed due to two major battles known as Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar. Clear? In these battles, British defeated the Indian powers and established control over this large eastern province of India. Clear? Apart from conquest of Bengal, British even established their control over provinces like it's not working. Mysore, as well as the province of Marathas in Western India and the province of Punjab in northwestern part of India. Apart from policy of territorial annexation, which was the medium through which these provinces were conquered or annexed, some British officers even adopted other policies of extending British control, and there was a Governor General of British East India Company, Lord Wellesley. Clear? This Governor General, Lord Wellesley, adopted a method known as subsidiary alliance system to establish indirect control over Indian powers. Clear? What were the major provisions of subsidiary alliance that came into being in 1798? As per subsidiary alliance policy, British authority made clear that they will protect Indian powers from any external aggression. But in lieu of this, Lord Wellesley demanded three commitments from Indian powers. These commitments were: number one, Indian power was to accept a British resident in their headquarters along with large military force. At the same time, Indian power could not employ any European into the service without the prior consent of the British. And moreover, Indian power could not declare war or sign treaty with other Indian powers without the prior consent of British. So in other words, Indian power was supposed to surrender the internal autonomy as well as sovereignty under subsidiary alliance. And by applying subsidiary alliance, British authority established control over regions like Nawab of Awadh, even Nizam of Hyderabad, as well as ruler of Mysore and some families of Marathas as well, including Peshwa in 1802. This was indirect method of extending political control. Apart from such policy, there was another Governor General, Lord Dalhousie, who adopted policy of direct annexation, and this was through the policy known as policy of Doctrine of Lapse. So Lord Dalhousie adopted another major policy for extending political control known as Doctrine of Lapse. What was this policy? As per Doctrine of Lapse, if any ruler of Indian province died without leaving natural or biological successor, the province was to be conquered by Lord Dalhousie rather than being handed over to adopted son. In other words, rule of adoption was replaced by rule of lapse, which was there in India since ancient times. By applying Doctrine of Lapse, Lord Dalhousie from 1848 began to establish control over provinces like Satara, Jaitapur, Sambhalpur, Bhagat, and even Jhansi and Nagpur. Clear? All these measures resulted into British political control over large parts of India. Clear? In fact, the conquest of Awadh was also undertaken by Lord Dalhousie in 1856, which had already concluded subsidiary alliance in 1801. With such annexation, large Indian provinces came under British rule, and politically British East India Company emerged to be the most dominant power in India. But just after some time, mighty revolt took place, and with the result of this revolt only, British East India Company's rule came to an end, and British Crown took over the charge of Indian territory and announced the end of policy of territorial annexation in India. So politically, British established control over several provinces of India through military strategy, through the strategy of subsidiary alliance given by Lord Wellesley, through the principle of Doctrine of Lapse given by Lord Dalhousie. And by the middle of 19th century, large parts of Indian territory came under British control. This was political policy followed by British in India. Apart from political policy, British even adopted the policy of economic control over India. So we'll move on to discuss about economic policies of the British in India. Now just understand here, since land revenue was always the most important revenue in India, India being agrarian country, British wanted to collect maximum amount in form of land revenue. And that is why British authority came up with three different types of land revenue settlements in India. The first revenue settlement, known as the permanent settlement, was started by Lord Cornwallis in 1793 in provinces of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. Second revenue settlement was started as Rayotwari settlement by Reed and Munro in Bombay and Madras in 1820. In fact, the word Rayot in Rayotwari settlement indicate the peasantry class. So since land revenue was directly negotiated with the peasantry class or the Rayos, the settlement itself came to be known as the Rayotwari settlement. Clear? The third revenue settlement was promoted in form of the Mahalwari settlement in northwestern and regions of Punjab, whereby several villages were clubbed together to discuss to create a new unit known as Mahal. And from every Mahal, definite amount of land revenue began to be collected. In fact, Mahalwari settlement is also known as modified permanent settlement because some changes of permanent settlement were introduced in Mahalwari settlement. Apart from land revenue settlement, British authority also went for trade policies to exploit Indian resources. Clear? First of all, they brought their own resources to India to purchase Indian commodities like spices and cotton. But after some time, they stopped the practice of bringing their own money. They began to purchase Indian commodities from resources taken from Bengal. And thereafter, those commodities were exported to Europe. In this way, it resulted into one-sided flow of wealth from India to Britain, which is known as the drain of wealth from India to Britain, first highlighted by India's economic historian Dadabhai Naoroji. Apart from drain of wealth, British economic policies from 1813 resulted into one-way free trade, whereby India began to export raw materials and India began to import finished products of Britain. And these finished products, when they began to flood Indian market, it resulted into decline of traditional cottage industries known as the phase of deindustrialization. So discriminatory approach of British resulted into deindustrialization, especially after 1813, to feed the large industries of Britain. This were two major domain of economic policies in form of land revenue settlements as well as the trade policies. Apart from this, British authority even tried to promote modern economic system, modern administrative system in India. And as far as the administrative policies are concerned, most of these policies were decided by the British parliamentarians in London. Do understand? It is a very important and positive aspect of British rule in India. Clear? When British established control over the province of Bengal, clear, as a result of Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar, they began to exploit resources of Bengal. And in course of time, Bengal witnessed a severe famine in 1770. This famine of Bengal became a topic at global level. Clear? This Bengal famine of 1770 created trouble for British East India Company also. And to deal with this famine situation, British authority or British East India Company asked for loan assistance from British parliamentarians. In this way, British Parliament got the authority to regulate or control the affairs of British East India Company. And in order to control or regulate the affairs of British East India Company, British parliamentarians enacted the Regulating Act of 1773. So first legislation enacted by British for Indian affairs was Regulating Act of 1773 in British Parliament in London. Clear? Under the provisions of Regulating Act of 1773, it was decided to appoint Governor General as the chief administrative officer in India. Governor General was to be assisted by 4 members, the whole body being known as Governor General's Executive Council. At the same time, to decide legal issues, this act also provided for the establishment of Supreme Court in India, and the Supreme Court of India came into existence in 1773 at Calcutta as per the provisions of the Regulating Act of 1773. Provisions were passed in 1773. The court finally came into existence in 1774, but decision was taken way back in 1773. After this Regulating Act of 1773, British parliamentarians enacted another legislation for India, and this legislation was in form of the Pitt's India Act. Clear? This act was enacted in the year 1784, and as per the provisions of Pitt's India Act, apart from Court of Directors, who were private financiers of British Company, Board of British Parliamentarians was also provided to regulate the affairs of this company. Therefore, from here, 2 authorities began to regulate the affairs of British East India Company. One was Court of Directors in London. Another was group of British parliamentarians in London known as Board of Control. And therefore, this marks the beginning of dual government in India. So dual control of government was started in India as per Pitt's India Act of 1784. Clear? Thereafter, British began to enact Charter Acts for Indian administration. The first Charter Act to be enacted by British in 1793, whereby it was decided all the members of Board of Control would be given extra remuneration out of Indian territory. So as a mark of salary transfer, large amount of revenue began to be drained from India to Britain. After 20 years, the Charter Act was reviewed, and the next Charter Act was passed in the year 1813. And as per the Charter Act of 1813, the trade monopoly of British East India Company was abolished. But trade over tea and trade with China was still retained under the exclusive preserve of British East India Company. So from here, Indian trade was left wide open for all British traders, whereby India became consumer of British products, manufactured products, and India became exporter of raw materials to fit the large industries of Britain. After this Charter Act, again after 20 years, the Charter Act was reviewed, and next Charter Act was passed in the year 1833. And as per the provisions of the Charter Act of 1833, the trade monopoly of British East India Company was completely abolished, meaning that by now even items like trade in tea and trade with China were taken away from the exclusive control of British East India Company. So finally, control of British East India Company over sea trade as well as trade with tea and trade with China was taken away under the Charter Act of 1833. After 20 years, another Charter Act was enacted by British in 1853. The most important provision being that this Charter Act provided a provision for competitive examination to select the members of Indian Civil Services. Till now, all the members of Indian Civil Services were nominated by Court of Directors in London. But from here, British parliamentarians made it clear that all the members of Indian Civil Services will be selected on the basis of relative merit just through competitive examination, which came into being under Charter Act of 1853. Just after some time, the mighty revolt took place in 1857, and thereafter the Charter Act could not be reviewed. Thereafter, British Parliament enacted a comprehensive legislation for India known as the Government of India Act 1858, which is also known as Act for Better Administration in India. Clear? So all these legislations under company's rule resulted into major changes in India. So under the Charter, under the Regulating Act of 1773, the post of Governor General came into being. Under the Act of British India Act of 1784, dual government was established in form of Court of Directors and Board of Control. Under Charter Act of 1813, trade monopoly was abolished, but finally trade with tea and trade with China was taken away under Charter Act of 1833. And as per Charter Act of 1853, provision for competitive examination to select Indian civil services was introduced. So all these had huge legacy over India as far as British administrative policy is concerned. At the same time, if we look into structure of British administration in India, it was based on three important pillars. These pillars were the police administration, the army, and Indian civil services. In fact, Indian civil services is the direct legacy of British rule in India, which is followed till contemporary times. Clear? Indian civil servants were nominated initially by Court of Directors, but they began to be selected through competitive examination on the basis of merit after Charter Act of 1853. All these developments are related to administration under British rule in India. Clear? In course of time, British Parliament has enacted other legislations also, like Government of India Act 1858, followed by Indian Councils Act of 1861, Indian Councils Act of 1892, and Indian Councils Act of 1909. But again, clear, the two most comprehensive legislations enacted by British authority for India was Government of India Act 1919 and Government of India Act 1935. Under Government of India Act 1919, British introduced the concept of bicameralism at center, whereby the central legislature was divided into Central Legislative Assembly and Central Legislative Council. Clear? At the same time, under Government of India Act 19, the scheme of diarchy was introduced, which was asked in this year's prelims examination as well. According to the scheme of diarchy, the whole legislative subjects were divided into two sections known as the transferred list and the reserved list. Clear? Important subjects were placed under reserved category, and laws on those subjects could be made only by Governor General and his Executive Council, Governor and his Executive Council. And all less important subjects were placed under transferred category. Laws on those subjects could be made by popularly elected ministers. However, this scheme of diarchy could not be effective just because of faulty division of subjects. And after some time, the scheme of diarchy failed. Clear? Finally, British came out with the most comprehensive legislation for India in form of Government of India Act 1935. Clear? And as per the provisions of Government of India Act 1935, all India Federation was provided, which did not come into force as princely states did not agree to this settlement. But in place of provincial diarchy, provincial autonomy was introduced by British authority. Clear? As per the provisions of this act only, the Supreme Court that existed at Calcutta was transferred to Delhi, the federal capital of India. Clear? And under Government of India Act 1935, the provinces of Bihar and Odisha were separated from Bengal. Even Burma was separated from India, that was part of British Empire. All major changes took place under Government of India Act 1935, the last and the most comprehensive legislation acted by British for Indian affairs. So administratively, they contributed regularly, and that resulted into modern system of administration in India, which is being followed till contemporary times. In fact, even Indian Constitution is considered to be carbon copy of the Government of India Act 1935. Clear? So all these were major developments related to administration. So after political control, economic policies, administrative policies, we'll move on to discuss British policy towards Indian society and culture, also known as socio-cultural policies. Just try to understand, clear, that in contrast to political, economic, and other policies, British adopted a rather conservative approach towards socio-cultural life of masses. The reason was that socio-cultural policies were largely decided by the Brahmins and Ulamas, who were very powerful sections in society, and British never wanted to antagonize these sections in Indian society. That is why they adopted a very non-interfering approach in socio-cultural life of masses in India. But under the pressure of British parliamentarians, they decided to interfere into socio-cultural life as well. First of all, the conservative approach indicated by British was in form of promoting traditional centers of learning like Calcutta Madarsa by Warren Hastings, or Sanskrit College at Calcutta Madarsa by Warren Hastings 1781, and Sanskrit College at Banaras by Jonathan Duncan in 1791. Clear? These were traditional centers of learning. But under Charter Act of 1813, British parliamentarians sanctioned ₹1 lakh for the spread of education in India. Clear? And when this amount was sanctioned by British Parliament, it led to controversy among British officers. Some officers still wanted to continue with traditional learning through the medium of Persian or Arabic languages. But some British officers wanted promotion of modern and scientific learning through the medium of English language. This controversy, known as Orientalist and Anglicist controversy, was resolved by very progressive Governor General Lord William Bentinck. He constituted an expert committee under the chairmanship of Lord Macaulay. And when he constituted an expert committee under Lord Macaulay, Lord William Bentinck decided to resolve this controversy. Lord Macaulay recommended that this sanction Lord William Bentinck. Lord Macaulay recommended that this sanctioned amount of ₹1 lakh should be used to promote modern and scientific learning through the medium of English language. This marked the beginning of English language in India. So Lord William Bentinck proved to be highly progressive for Indian society, and he led to English education in India. Lord William Bentinck even abolished the custom of sati in India as per regulations in 1929. Lord William Bentinck even suppressed the thugs in India, which became a very important development. Clear? So Lord William Bentinck proved to be highly progressive Governor General of British East India Company. Clear? At the same time, clear, apart from promotion of English language, which was started by William Bentinck, in course of time, British parliamentarians decided to establish 3 universities in India. And this was established as per the recommendations of Wood's Dispatch. Clear? Wood's Dispatch was announced in the year 1854, and as per this dispatch, 3 universities at Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras were established in 1857. Very important development related to education. But just after some time, the rule of company came to an end after mighty revolt of 1857. Clear? So these are major developments. Clear? Progressive policies on the pattern of Lord William Bentinck was also followed by another Governor General in India, and this Governor General was Lord Dalhousie. Clear? We had discussed about his policy of expansion form of doctrine of lapse, but Lord Dalhousie also played major roles in different areas as Governor General from 1858 to 48 to 1856. Lord Dalhousie promoted the first railways in India, and this railway line ran from Bombay to Thane. He also started the concept of telegraph system in India. Clear. At the same time, he promoted Public Works Department in India to promote construction of public amenities. All these are progressive policies adopted by Lord Dalhousie, and therefore he is also considered to be father of modern India among British. So two governor generals took major progressive measures in India, Lord William Bentinck and Lord Dalhousie. Clear? At the same time, we need to understand that after the mighty revolt of 1857, clear, British Crown took over India, but at the same time, it marked the beginning of political awareness and consciousness in India. And this awareness and consciousness resulted into long-drawn struggle for India's liberation, known as Indian National Movement. In fact, it is the world's most longest movement for political emancipation. And this Indian national movement started with formation of All India political body in form of Indian National Congress in 1885. The first annual session of this political body being convened at Bombay on 27th of December 1885 under the presidency of Umesh Chandra Banerjee. The first phase of Indian national movement from 1885 till 1905 were dominated by a class of leaders who are collectively known as the moderates. So first phase of national movement, clear? So first phase of Indian national movement was started from 1885 till 1905, and it was dominated by a group of leaders known as the moderates. Clear? So moderates dominated the Indian political scene for almost 2 decades, from 1885 till 1905. Clear? Moderates never wanted to come into conflict with British. Rather, they wanted certain reforms to be introduced by British. The most important contribution being economic critique of British imperialism. And in criticizing British economic policies, the most important role was played by a moderate leader, Dadabhai Naoroji. Clear? Dadabhai Naoroji gave the theory of drain of wealth, whereby he emphasized British were draining India of major resources, which is a primary reason for India's poverty. Clear? Dadabhai Naoroji's claim of drain of wealth was further elaborated by another Indian expert, R.C. Dutt, in his work Economic History of India, in which he highlighted the amount or quantity of wealth drained from India to Britain. Apart from these leaders, the other prominent leaders among moderates were Gopal Krishna Gokhale, were leaders like R.C. Dutt. Then we have Gopal Krishna Gokhale. These were prominent leaders, Firoz Shah Mehta. But in the year 1905, moderate leaders began to face a huge crisis. In 1905, British decided to partition the most active province of Bengal. Clear? As soon as British took this decision of dividing the province of Bengal, this resulted into failure of moderate leaders, and a new cadre of national leaders emerged in India. These leaders from 1905 clear, till 1915 dominated the political scene, and these leaders are known as extremists. Clear? So to differentiate them from moderate, they are known as extremists. These leaders believed that active mass agitation must be launched against the British to get the demands accepted. The greatest extremist leader was Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Clear? He was the most prominent leader, and other leaders were basically Bipin Chandra Pal, and Lala Lajpat Rai. They were prominent extremist leaders, and they advocated mass agitation or passive resistance against the British. Clear? And these leaders wanted Indians to start mass agitation against the partition of Bengal. And this resulted into the first mass movement in 1905, this movement being known as the Swadeshi and the Boycott movement. Clear? This movement started in 1905 and continued till 1908 for 3 years. Clear? Even moderates had to accept this demand, and therefore both moderates and extremists combined together launched the Swadeshi movement in 1905 against the partition of Bengal. This movement was based on the philosophy of Atma Shakti or self-reliance. Clear? And the most important feature of this movement was emphasis on cultural growth and development. During this movement only, Rabindranath Tagore started to celebrate the festival of Raksha Bandhan in unique style, whereby Hindus and Muslims were asked to tie threads on each other's hand to show indestructibility of Bengal into eastern and western halves. At the same time, Rabindranath Tagore composed the song Amar Sonar Bangla to highlight the rich cultural heritage of Bengal. Bankim Chand Chatterjee composed the song Vande Mataram during this movement. Rabindranath Tagore began to promote indigenous style of painting by boycotting the Victorian and the foreign style of painting. All these developments resulted into promotion of indigenous culture to make Indians confident to stand against British rule. Apart from Swadeshi, boycott of foreign made goods also continued. However, at the peak of this movement, it got affected because of two major reasons. Clear? First reason was, in order to check this movement, British began to convince Muslim leaders of East Bengal that partition has been done to protect their interest. Clear? And under the influence of British, some leaders of East Bengal established All India Muslim League in 1906. And the leaders of All India Muslim League, like Nawab Aga Khan of Dhaka, Nawab Salimullah, Nawab Mohsin al-Mulk, they asked Muslim masses to remain aloof from Swadeshi movement. This created sense of confusion and insecurity, and therefore it is not a big surprise. At the height of Swadeshi movement, communal riots broke out throughout the province of Bengal, which adversely affected this movement. So British succeeded in the scheme of divide and rule. Another factor to affect Swadeshi movement was differences between moderates and extremists. Even though moderates and extremists combined together launched this movement, but in course of time, differences began to take place. Moderates wanted this movement to remain confined within Bengal. Extremists wanted this movement to be expanded beyond the province of Bengal. Regarding the pace and extent of this movement, differences began to take place. Clear? And when such differences began to take place, clear, at this time, Congress session was convened at Surat in 1907. And during this session, there was formal split between the moderates and the extremists. Clear? And in this split, as soon as extremists walked away, moderates also decided not to support the mass movement. So Swadeshi movement gradually came to an end just because of Congress split in 1907, also known as the Surat split. Clear? These are very important. Other dimensions also we discuss in the Surat split elaborately in classes. Clear? And we do this thing in our foundation batch. We do this when we do our integrated course for general studies. Clear? In fact, Edukemy is coming out with large number of courses. We are coming with module-wise teaching like history module, art and culture, even geography and society. We are also coming out with paper-wise analysis, that is paper-wise module, that is module for paper 1, paper 2, 3, and 4 accordingly. Clear? So just if you are there in this course, you will get elaborate discussions on these tests, followed by large number of test and writing practice as well. So mentorship, writing practice are integral part of the courses. Clear? Apart from Surat, just understand, coming back to Swadeshi movement, when this movement came to an end, British adopted the dual strategy, and the strategy was brutal suppression of the extremists, at the same time conciliation of the moderates. And as a mark of brutal suppression, British authority arrested Bal Gangadhar Tilak, who was imprisoned for 8 years and deported to Mandale jail. Moderates were reconciled through Indian Council Act of 1909, whereby it was decided to add some Indians in the system of administration. Clear? Moderates got reconciled, and there were no major political agitation from 1908 till 1914, till the beginning of the First World War. Clear? First World War broke out among European powers primarily for the race of imperialism and colonialism. In the First World War only, Mahatma Gandhi came to India in 1915, took the charge of Indian national movement, and under Mahatma Gandhi's leadership, Indian national movement entered its third and final phase. This third and final phase is known as the Gandhian phase. And this Gandhian phase of Indian national movement started in 1915 and continued till India became independent in 1947. And under Gandhian leadership, several mass movements were launched in India, starting with the first mass movement in form of non-cooperation movement from 1920 to 22. This movement was launched for 2 years in order to redress Khilafat issue, in order to redress Jallianwala Bagh massacre in Punjab, and establishment of Swaraj. Clear? After non-cooperation movement, Mahatma Gandhi launched his second mass movement in form of civil disobedience movement from 1930 to 34. It was the second and the most organized mass movement under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi. It was found in different parts of India. Civil disobedience movement was expressed in the extreme northwestern part of India by Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, in the extreme northeastern part of India by Rani Gedeliu, in the southern part of India by C. Rajagopalachari, in the northern part of India by Sarojini Naidu. So it became a very prominent movement of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi ended this movement after 4 years in 1934. And at the same time, Mahatma Gandhi resigned from Congress membership to serve as an individual. Clear? Mahatma Gandhi launched his third mass movement in form of Quit India movement in 1942, which has to be understood in the context of the Second World War. Second World War started in the year 1939, went on for 6 years. And in the course of Second World War, Japan, being a fascist and aggressive power, conquered the major parts of Southeast Asia, began to advance towards India from the region of Manipur. Clear? In fact, Japanese troops entered up to the region of Imphal in Manipur. Clear? At this time, Mahatma Gandhi considered that if British does not quit India, India will become a battleground between Britain and Japan. Therefore, out of anxiety, he convened the meeting of Congress members at Bombay on 8th of August 1942. And during this meeting, he decided to launch Quit India movement by giving the slogan of do or die. It must be understood, do or die never meant violence. It was basically to convince masses that either they will liberate the motherland or they will end their life through hunger strike peacefully. Clear? Just to create moral pressure on Britain to quit India as soon as possible. Clear? Quit India movement proved to be violent. The reason was all Congress leaders, including Mahatma Gandhi, were arrested immediately, and therefore masses began to behave spontaneously and violently, and therefore British succeeded in suppressing this movement within few months. After the end of Quit India movement in 1942, there were no major political agitation in India for 3 years till the end of Second World War in 1945. And after the end of Second World War, global institutions like United Nations came into being, and United Nations began to pressurize British to decolonize the countries of Asia and Africa. Under global pressure, British authority decided to liberate India and therefore deputed a very important mission to India known as the Cabinet Mission Plan in 1946. And Cabinet Mission Plan recommended the establishment of a constituent assembly to draft the future constitution of India so that India can be liberated with proper system of administrative structure. Clear? And Constituent Assembly was convened by Indian leaders on 9th of December 1946. They started the process of drafting Indian Constitution, and ultimately it resulted into draft of Indian Constitution in a period of more than 2 years. Meanwhile, British authority decided to transfer power, especially when Labour government was established in Britain. Labour Party was always sensitive towards the concern of India. And on behalf of Labour Party, Clement Attlee became British Prime Minister. And he made an announcement in British Parliament on 20th of February 1947 that British will vacate India latest by 30th of June 1948. Clear? So even a deadline was fixed, which was initially 1948. And therefore, in order to ensure transfer of power, Clement Attlee deputed Lord Mountbatten as Governor General of India. Clear? And Lord Mountbatten, after discussing with leaders of Congress and All India Muslim League, decided to partition India into two nation states of India and Pakistan. And to demarcate the boundary line between the two countries, Mountbatten constituted a boundary commission under the chairmanship of Lord Ratcliffe. And Lord Ratcliffe was given only one criteria to demarcate this boundary, and that criteria was that wherever there was 60% or more population of Muslims, those areas should be segregated as Pakistan. Based on this criteria, boundary was demarcated in the northwestern part of India, eastern part of India to create East and West Pakistan. Based on recommendations of Boundary Commission and discussion with Indian leaders, Lord Mountbatten also gave his plan known as 3rd June Plan of 1947. And based on this plan and recommendations of Boundary Commission, British Parliament is enacted the Indian Independence Act of 1947, whereby India was made independent country, but at the same time partitioned into two separate nation states. The Indian Independence Act was adopted by government people of India on 15th of August 1947, and India became an independent nation, and the large efforts of different leaders succeeded finally to emancipate India. Clear? This is considered to be the most important agitation of human history, and in fact, the world's largest and prolonged mass movement. Clear? So this was about modern India, starting with establishment of British rule under Company, and then under Crown's rule that also witnessed India's struggle for independence. In modern India, we also consider another topic in our UPSC syllabus, that is post-independent era, which includes consolidation of Indian territory by integration of princely states, reorganization of states. All this we will be covering in our integrated GS batch as well as the foundation batch. And moreover, as I told you, we are focusing on giving you multiple courses. And in this multiple courses, we will also be coming with history and art and culture module separately, as well as paper 1 of general studies that includes history, Indian society, and geography. Clear? So just be ready to take the benefit of all these courses offered by Edukemy under the able guidance and mentorship of Shabir sir. Clear? Who is a renowned figure in this market and who knows the nuances of this examination very well. So under his guidance, the team has been developing several modules effectively to cater to the requirements of all the candidates. In fact, we do understand that the most important challenge in general studies is sense of completion, which is missing among the candidates. So here we'll be targeting to give the sense of completion by covering each and every subtopic and topic of UPSC syllabus. Clear? Apart from this, our program is also supported by large number of tests, practice-driven approach, and at the same time, clear, continuous mentorship by experts, so that even before class and after class, you get proper guidance to be on your toe, so that you are at peace to start preparation of this examination. Clear? Here, we are not focusing only on simple classes, because we don't believe that only 2.5 hours of classes is sufficient for you to crack this examination. Rather, much more important is pre-class and post-class engagement, with which we are very much concerned, whereby we want to give you several activities after class and even before class, so that you are able to engage yourself with properly and understand what is the basic philosophy of working with you continuously. We just don't want unilateral flow of information concepts to you. We rather want you to participate with us, so that proper participatory approach can lead to engaged process whereby we can develop a very prominent strategy to get through in this examination. And at the same time, we can ensure the process does not become monotonous in nature. So with active participation and varied activities, at the same time, we will ensure it remains to an interesting journey. In fact, it is a learner's journey that we follow. We are in the process of learning. And I think not only you will be learning, even we will be learning a lot. And this mutual process of learning will continue to assist you, to develop you the confidence, needed to crack this examination. So just be with us, come to us, enjoy the difference in strategy, as well as enjoy the activities performed by us in pre and post class sessions in order to make this learner journey as interesting as possible, as engaging as possible, and to make it more attractive for you to come to this process to qualify India's most prestigious examination. Clear? So we as a team has already started to gear up for coming time, so that we can give you the best possible strategy, best possible way to crack this examination with all vigor and enthusiasm. To see you all, or rather expect you all to come together so that we can start this learner journey in a most effective manner. Thank you and all the best.